Hey.
How's that?
That's better.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's better.
Yeah, because I couldn't make it louder if we need to. I'm eating a Cliff Bar right now. Give me a second here. Finish my breakfast.
Get it out of your teeth, huh?
Oh, it sounds good, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
For sure.
thanks for taking time to talk with us. I'm gonna read a little quick intro here, and then we'll jump into the interview. You think in my intro that I wrote, you think it'd be safe to say that you've been to thousands of races?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I personally have run well over 1,000 races, and
That's what I thought. Yeah.
these days I go to more races than I race. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how many races I've been to, but it's 3,000-ish.
Okay. So I also put that you've met millions of runners. You think that'd be safe to say?
That would be safe to say. I mean, I've been
Okay.
doing this job 28 years, traveling the globe and meeting
Yeah.
thousands of runners every weekend.
That's awesome.
A long time.
I was fact checking him. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah. And
Yeah. Those are safe numbers.
Good,
Those are
Okay.
probably all conservative, but that's good.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so. I'll just say billions of
No,
runners.
come on.
Yeah.
It's like
Billions
McDonald's
is an
here.
exaggeration, but
Every runner on the planet Bart has met.
yeah.
Okay, here we
Try.
go. All right, we're on the podcast today with Bart Yasso. He's the Chief Running Officer at Runner's World Magazine. He's an accomplished runner and author of the book My Life on the Run. And you've probably seen Bart at a race expo somewhere, since he's been to thousands of races and literally met millions of runners. And he's truly one of our sport's greatest ambassadors. So, Bart Yasso, great to have you on the
Thank you
podcast
so
today.
much. Thank you for having me on MTA, as I call it.
That's right.
We had you on the show 5 years ago.
Wow.
And it was a real delight to have you on the show. It was one of our first interviews we did, in fact, when the podcast just started. So
It's good to be back.
It's-
Happy to know I'm still alive 5 years later.
5 years flies when you're having fun and you're traveling a lot, I'm sure, huh?
Yeah, it is fun. I absolutely love my job. It's crazy. I get excited about coming to work on Mondays. I know people dread Mondays. I don't dread Mondays. I'm ready to get in my office and get the week going.
wow, that's great. So let's start at the beginning. Take us back to how you started running, and for those that don't know your story.
Yeah, so you got to go back to 1976, 77. Back then, there was what we thought was a running boom. Frank Shorter wins Olympic gold in 72, comes back and wins Olympic silver in 76. Got a lot of publicity, and running started, what we thought was a running boom taking off. And I was one of those people, and I needed a life change. I was leading a bad lifestyle. I wanted to get in shape. So I thought running would be the way to do it. And I just started running in the morning, and I never thought I would fall in love with running the way it did. And I just loved getting up and going out for those runs. I thought 2 miles was a long way to run back then. I thought, wow, 2 miles, that's a long way. Of course, now it's a little bit different, but we all start somewhere.
That's right.
I really wish I had a selfie of my first run, and of course, we didn't do selfies back in 1976. But I can tell you, I had on cutoff jeans. I had on a belt on those cutoff jeans. I had on like a Budweiser T-shirt. I had these white socks that came up to my knees, and they weren't compression socks back then. They were just bad white socks and some beat up, what I thought were running shoes, which really weren't running shoes. But we all start somewhere. I know if I had that photo, it would be priceless to see.
That's for sure.
But yeah, I don't run in cutoff jeans anymore and Budweiser T-shirts. That changed a lot. But I just literally just started running a mile, 2 miles, and thought that was a long way to go. And then eventually, my older brother George, challenged me to a race, 10K race. And after I did that 10K race, I was hooked. And I think it was a combination of challenging yourself in the race. I love that part of it. It's just you against the clock. You can be good enough to win races and push, if you're the lead pack, but most runners really challenge themselves, and it's your hard work versus that clock. And that's a cool payoff. You're not judged by anybody but yourself. And I fell in love with that. And then what I didn't know is how intoxicating the running community is until you're immersed in it and realize that they became my best friends, and doing these group long runs. I mean, it's just changed my life forever. And but there weren't again, what we thought was a running boom back in 1976 compared to what's out there today.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much has changed, all to the better. The percentage of women running, the amount of runners out there, the amount of races. We thought it was a big deal. I remember, when I started doing those long 20-mile runs, if I saw another runner, it was like unbelievable. Like, there's another runner coming the other way. I can't believe it. And we would wave like you saw Santa Claus or something. And it was that rare. Now, head out for a long run and run into hundreds of people. So it's really fun. The change has been incredible.
One of my questions that I have was, you've been running for over 30 years, and I was just going to ask.
40 years.
Yeah, almost 40. So
Yeah, closing on a 40.
I was going to ask, like, what else has changed in running since you started?
Besides the white socks.
Besides the what? Yeah, they do now. I like that. They're now called compression socks.
Yeah, what else did?
And now it's like fashion now. No, it really, obviously, the number one by far is the percentage of women. I mean, that is the biggest change by far from when I started. There were a handful of women who did races when I started running. And now go to races, there's more women than men, and actually a lot of the data shows, a dedicated runner, which is someone we call someone who runs over 110 times a year. There's more women doing that than men, and that's incredible statistics.
Wow.
So that by far is the biggest change. And then technology. We thought we were the bomb when we had a $10 Casio watch that had a chrono on it, and we could time ourselves and do splits. We thought we were the coolest thing ever, and that was the end of the technology.
Wow.
$9.99 Casio watch. I remember we all had even the same type of watch, and we thought, you saw another runner with that watch on, you were like, wow, they're serious. A little bit different today with technology, heart rate, GPS. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Technical running gear, the way the shoes have changed. You knew back in '76, you knew everyone you ran with, you knew what shoe they were running in. Now I can't keep up with all the different models and brands, and the turnover is a lot faster on, they switch out a new brand and update stuff so much quicker than they used to. And everything was pretty basic black and white colors. We didn't wear anything fancy. And now, man, running skirts and the stuff that has changed. And it's all for the better because it just brings more people in.
Yeah.
People don't feel intimidated. You just feel part of the running community. And that's the beauty of it. I always say that my job as chief running officer is just to get people out there, get them running. Once they get immersed in a running community, the running community takes over. My job is done. The running community will take them in, turn them into runners, keep them running, work with them to stay injury-free and do all that kind of stuff. There's so many people out there willing to help. But people don't know that. When you're on the outside, you don't know, we actually have fun doing this stuff. We like each other, even though we compete against each other. And it's an awesome community of people. I mean, I can't tell you how many great people I've met that, they work nonstop helping people out. And that's pretty cool because it does sound like we're egotistical maniacs out there running all these miles and pushing our personal records and stuff like that. And that's really not the case. There are a lot of people out there just embracing the sport, just being happy they can run races and getting more people into the sport.
Yeah, you're right. I think for maybe people who are just starting their running journey who are listening to this and maybe they've never signed up for a race before, the thought of even towing the line at a 5K seems intimidating because they feel like they won't fit in. And like you're saying, they are going to fit in, and the running community is really welcoming, and there really is something for everyone. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I know a lot of our listeners probably are wondering how you got the job at Runner's World, because many people are thinking, okay, I love to run. Wouldn't it be perfect to just have a job that focused on running and within the running community? So talk a little bit about that.
I was one of those people. I always said I used to go out for these long runs, and in my 22-mile, 23-mile run, I actually found out that a lot of runs that I called 23 miles were actually like 27 miles. Wow. We came out with the modern technology, which actually made me happy that they were longer than I thought. But, I'd be out on those long runs, and I was the same way. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to get a job where I get paid to go to races and travel the world? And And it happened to me, but I really used to dream that and think about it back in the early 80s. And when I started out Runner's World in 1987, I just didn't. I started more on race promotions, and my job just morphed into different things. And even when I started at Runner's World, I never thought I would end up running all over the world and having these opportunities that I was granted. I feel very, very lucky. But I really dreamt about it on those long runs years ago. And I would say if it happened to me, it can happen to everyone. And I see it on social media every single day. Hundreds, thousands of people want my jobs. I mean, they're runners, obviously.
Yes.
I'd say my job, I mean, I feel like I have a charmed life and a great job, but it's not an easy job. And I would say, it's a best job for a runner. I don't think a non-runner would want to do my job for one day. But as you know, there are millions of runners out there, and I hear about it all the time. Everybody wants my job, wants to get paid to go around the world and do races, and I don't blame them. But I always tell people when they ask me, I say, well, it happened to me, it can happen to you. Because if you would have told me when I went out for that first run in 1976 with the Budweiser shirt and the cutoff jeans, this guy will work at Runner's World someday. He'll run races on all 7 continents and hundreds of marathons. I mean, I would have said, you are out of your mind. I'm hoping to make it 1 mile.
Exactly.
But never know where the journey will take you, but you have to commit and start the journey. The journey doesn't take you anywhere if you don't commit and start the journey. Mm-hmm. So my tagline has always been never limit where running could take you. Physically, geographically, emotionally, spiritually, however you use the power of the sport. Just literally, pun intended, run with it, and who knows where you'll end up.
Awesome. So, can you give us a tour of your office? You got some colorful things back there.
My God. Well, first off, there's you see Flat Bart back there.
Flat Barts, yeah.
Right, nice.
Yeah, that big guy. And then there's so much stuff in this office. It's just crazy. I don't know why some stuff makes it on the wall and other stuff doesn't. I really don't know. I try to do a lot, I try to keep my office clean and spend as much time here as I can when I'm not traveling, but it gets crazy.
I'm sure it does. Give us an idea of your travel schedule. I mean, what is that? Is it more seasonal, or are you pretty much on the road throughout the year?
I always think it should be seasonal, but it's not. It just goes nonstop. Like I was just in Alaska, and now I'm heading to Hawaii, so it goes on and on and on. And then there's a serious fall marathon schedule.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I would say that starts the end of September and goes to the second week in December. I'm at a marathon every weekend. And, most of them are the real big ones. But some races love me to come in and do race announcing and seminars and that kind of stuff. And I do that on a lot of the, second, third tier marathons that aren't the real big Chicago, New Yorks, but good size races like Route 66 and Tulsa, races like that, where I come in and really do a lot the whole weekend. I just love it. It's just fun. And most of those I don't run a step that weekend, except for maybe a 3-mile shakeout run on Saturday and take a group out for a shakeout run. But I'm at that finish line, getting to see those people come in and accomplish their goals. I absolutely love it. I had my day. I'm happy just to be part of the community and do whatever I need to do to help out.
Just give us an idea of where you've been, like, let's say, in the last 60 days.
Last 60 days, Alaska. Before that, God, I did a lot of trips to New York City over the last couple weeks because we did this Runner's World cover contest where right around 1,700 people entered to be on the cover of the magazine.
Wow.
And we'd go in, one of our guest judges is Natalie Morales from the Today Show. So I'd go in, meet with Natalie, and pour through these 1,700 entries, get down to 10. We're actually down to 10 right now, and then we have to pick 2 winners, which is just really hard.
That's got to be so hard.
Some amazing stories. People overcome so much just to get to the starting line of a race. For them to go out and accomplish what they do is just amazing to me. But before, I can't even... sometimes I go to my own website to make sure I know where I'm going, because it just goes on and on and on. I literally, it's crazy how much I travel, but I love it. I did a marathon in July up in Vermont,
Ah,
called the Marathon. What a brutal course. It was
wow.
awesome. It was a very warm day by Vermont standards, like 80 some degrees.
Wow,
Uh,
that's
and it's a hilly course, but it is so beautiful running in this Mad River Valley. And this great runner knew it was a warm day, and he went out on his own, nothing to do with the race, and bought watermelon and this big canister of salt. And right about 16 miles, it
That's
came
nice.
along, and he was handing out slices of watermelon, asked if you wanted salt on it. I said yes. And watermelon with salt on it when it's 85 degrees and you're 16 miles into a marathon is like $1 million. I mean, it
yes.
was so good, it was unbelievable. And that's the cool thing. Like, this guy just knew it would be helpful, and he went out there and did it on his own. Nothing to do with the race, just went out and
Wow.
bought watermelon and big canister of salt and helped every runner out. That stuff I love.
I think I saw on your Facebook page a photo of you on the deck of a boat going to like the Arctic Circle marathon or something.
Yes, I did post that as a throwback.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that was a throwback photo of this. We were on a Russian ship going to the Arctic Circle, a race called the Arctic Circle Marathon. And the Russian crew, they work all day engineering the ship, doing all the stuff they got to do, and their real break was at midnight. And the sun was still up at midnight. So they asked me to run with them around the deck of the ship for, like 30 minutes. It was awesome. We ran between like midnight and 12:30 watching the sunset. And then I just stayed up because the sunrise was about 90 minutes later.
Oh my.
So there was this little bit of, 90 minutes of dusk. It never really got dark, and then watched the sunrise. And that's pretty cool when you get that experience like that. And it was absolutely beautiful location. We were in the picture was taken in the northern part of the Hudson Bay, which is way up there. Is fun. Then we were still on that large vessel before we got in the smaller vessels to get to where we needed to go. So pretty arduous journey, but worth the trip.
So here's a question: how many times have you been asked to be in someone's selfie?
Oh my God, I don't know that answer, but I do a lot of selfies. People call me the Selfie King, and it's not. I mean, I didn't start selfies. The only rule I have is I never posted a selfie with me in it. All my selfies have other people, so I don't know if that's really a selfie.
It's an ussy here.
An Nasty or whatever they call them. Yeah, 'cause I have a rule. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think
good.
anyone wants to see a picture of me. But I love it when there's other people in there and smiling runners. So I try to get as many other people in all my selfies. I do take the picture, so I guess that could be a selfie as I'm snapping the photo. But,
You just have the longest arms, I guess, huh?
yeah, people tell me I have selfie arms, and I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But I do have that. My right arm is my selfie arm, and I do it during races, which is just awesome. People hand me their phone, give me their code. I open up their phone and then snap a photo. I've had the craziest thing that happen in races, stuff like that. People just saying, I want a selfie, and they just hand me their phone. And I open it
Wow.
up, and they give me their code. I know more people's cell phone codes than anybody.
Yeah.
I was running the Bermuda half marathon this past January and running next to this woman, and she said, "Hey, you're Bart Yasso." And I said, "Yeah, what's your name?" And she said, "Natalie." And we started talking, and we were going to go past her house in about a half mile. She gave me her garage code. She said, "The coolest thing ever, if you run up and go in my garage," and I could say, "Bart Yasso is in my garage."
Oh wow.
She gave me her garage code, 0423, and I'm like, I can't go in your garage. But I did tell her that's probably the craziest request I ever had in the midst of a race. Like, we were running the half marathon. She wanted me to like veer off course. Her house was right on the course. Veer off course, go into her yard, open up her garage, run in her garage, and then come back on the course.
Maybe she had cold beer in there or something to be worth it. But
And I ended up being really good friends with this Natalie and her boyfriend Tim, and turned out to be really good friends of mine. It's funny. I mean, who would think of that? We're running a half marathon, and she said there was beer in there. I could drink beer and everything. I said, I got to finish the half marathon. I can't run around your garage. I just thought it was a crazy fun request.
yeah,
But
that is neat.
that's what people don't know about the running community. Like, who would think somebody would give you their garage code and tell you to go in their garage? And it's crazy, but it's all fun stuff. I love it.
Speaking of fun stuff, what are some of the most bizarre races that you know of?
Oh yeah, well I always get tagged because I did the bare buns run, run
Yeah.
naked, wear shoes, but it's one thing to
At
go
the
to
nudist colony, that you talk
at a
about that in your
nudist
book.
colony outside of Spokane, Washington.
And you were on a date. You took a date there too, right?
Yeah, it was crazy whole thing. Yeah, it was our first date. There's a whole backstory to that.
First date at a
But
nudist colony. That's
yeah, but it's one thing to go to one of these nude races and do it. It's another thing to go to one of these nude races when they promote that you're coming.
oh
They'll
man.
give you bib number one, and they put in everyone's race packet. Bart Yasso was wearing bib number one, and you speak at the pasta dinner the night before, where the people are naked at the dinner. It's, yeah, that wasn't
Did you
part of
have
the
to speak
whole.
that way?
Yes,
Oh
I
my.
did. I thought I could. I always tell people I thought I could hide behind a podium, and they didn't have a podium for me. Blank stage. Get up there on the stage, buddy. But I
Wow.
would say if I could speak in that kind of setting, I mean, sometimes I speak to audiences of 2,000 people, and people always ask me if I'm nervous. I go, not a chance. Like, go speak at the Bare Buns Run. It'll break you in as public speaker.
Oh man.
But some of Antarctica, obviously, the Arctic Circle races like that, Mount Everest Marathon. They've just done some real. I've been very fortunate to do some crazy races in exotic locations, but they're all an adventure. There's always every race is unique. I get a question every once in a while on my worst race experience or a bad race experience, and honestly, I never had one. I mean, I've been sent off course and sent the wrong direction, and had tons of stuff happen. But that doesn't make it a bad experience. I mean, we're relying on volunteers, and somebody thought the volunteer didn't go there to send me the wrong way.
Right.
Right.
So you just make fun of that stuff. I know some people get really upset, but these people are trying. They're doing good things. They had the energy to put on a race. Stuff went wrong. Not the end of the world. It makes for great stories.
That's
I
right.
there was one race that I was winning, and when I came in, no one passed me, so obviously I won the race. But there were people finishing the other direction,
Oh no.
got sent off course, and the race director was going, and he thought they were ahead of me. He's like, "Oh no, this guy won, and she was second," and I'm like, "They were behind me." And they knew they went the wrong way and didn't run the distance because they were all looking at their watch thinking, wow, what went wrong? But it was funny for the race director to say, oh, all those people beat you. I don't know how they did that with being behind me, but stuff like that, I get a kick out of it. As I said, it makes for good stories, and, in the big picture, it's, you can't let that stuff upset you.
That could be a great takeaway, for our listeners is just keeping a good attitude, because that's one thing that you just exude, Bart, is just fun and enjoying these races.
Yeah, I really, I looked at running very competitive in the old days and was a competitive runner, and now I'm not competitive anymore, and I just run for fun. But even when I was still competitive, I kept things fun. I mean, if you want to be doing this a long time, you got to keep it fun. People that are like crazy intense and every workout has to be faster than the other and every race has to improve, those are people that are not in our sport a long time. I want to be doing this another 30 years. Hopefully I'll live that long, and I want to keep running. So I keep it fun. Otherwise I'd burn out mentally and physically. So part of the thing is just keep it fun, run with other people, slow down and just enjoy it. There's some races you just have to take it in and say, okay, I'm not in good shape because of whatever illness or some injury. Just go out and enjoy the race. A lot of people won't do a race if they're not in top shape. And I can't tell you how many races I had fun doing and I wasn't in good shape. Just went out there. I remember I did the Tacoma City Marathon last May, and I wasn't in shape. I had some problems from my Lyme disease. I had to take it easy for a while. And I wasn't planning on running the race. I was their guest speaker. And I met these two guys the day before the race, and both of them asked me to run part of the race with them. And it was a guy by the name of Brian Pendleton, who's suffering from ALS right now, but has over 200 marathons under his belt. And I met Brian before, and he knew his marathon career was over because the ALS is really starting to paralyze his body.
Wow.
And he wanted to run a little bit with me. And then this other guy, Michael, survived stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And he said when he was really sick, like on death's bed, he was reading my book and he was laughing. And he said, God, if I ran with you, it would be a dream. I was like, God, I got to go out and run with these.
How can you say no?
Yeah, I got a bib number and ran with them. And I didn't know what was going to happen. But, once I started the race and ran with them, I said, I got to get to the finish line. And about 17, 18 miles, I was dead. I was so in a bad way. But then I ended up with this group of runners that we made a pact to stick together, and they got me to the finish line. That, what I call the running community, came along at the right time when I needed it, and we all finished together. But the craziest thing was this whole story came out of this race. When I did the shakeout run the day before the race, there was a woman who was a flight attendant. And she told me that during the shakeout run. We finished the shakeout run, we go to a coffee shop, we're all having coffee. And everyone looks at me to tell stories. And I said, no, I'm not telling any stories. I got to do 2 seminars, speak at the dinner tonight. Someone else is telling the stories. So I looked right at that woman and I said, okay, this is inappropriate. You can tell me I'm crazy, but I'm going to ask you if you ever witnessed anybody trying to join the Mile High Club in all your flights as a flight attendant. She had couple awesome stories, which took me off the hook telling stories, and everyone was interested in her stories, and it was pretty funny. So I remember looking right at her and calling her my favorite flight attendant. Well, the next day in that Tacoma Marathon, at that 18 miles when I was just wiped out, there was a little out and back section. Tacoma is a point-to-point course, but there's this little, we go through this neighborhood and do this little out and back. Well, wouldn't you know it, as I'm running up, who's on the other side but my favorite flight attendant, who I don't even know her name. And I just met her at that, at the shakeout run. And she looks over and she starts screaming, Bart, Bart, Bart. And I'm looking over and I'm half blind. I can't see who it is. And she yells real loud, it's your favorite flight attendant, the Mile High Club. That's all she said. So she keeps running that way and I'm running the other way with this group. And they're like, wow, you are the man. Young, gorgeous woman just yelled at me.
Yeah.
She's my favorite flight attendant of the Mile High Club. And I had to tell these people, I don't know that woman. I've never been in a plane with her. I don't even know her name. They didn't believe me. They said, well, why would she say that? And I tried to explain the whole story. And by the time I got done convincing those people that it was not a member of the Mile High Club, we were at mile 23. So we got from 18 to 23, just me trying to explain this whole story. God, that was the best timing for that. It's like if you were going to script a movie, it couldn't have been scripted any better. I mean, just the way she came along and we were going this way, it was unbelievable. One of my favorite running moments. Have a young woman yell. And I never told anyone that story for a long time. I kept thinking, I got to meet this woman and ask her if I can talk about it. And I never ran into her. I have a picture of her from the shakeout run. So finally at Marine Corps Marathon this past fall, I was speaking at the pasta dinner, which has like over 1,000 people at it. And I said, I'm opening up my speech with the Mile High Club. This crowd needs a laugh. So that's how I opened up my talk. And there was 2 generals sitting at my table, and they were right in front of me as I'm up on the stage. And they loved it. So I was happy it worked out. Well, the next day in the Marine Corps Marathon, I'm on the course cheering for people. And the last spot I stood at was right about 25 and a half miles. And I had 2 women, both young women in maybe 20s, 30s. They stopped during the marathon, gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, I'm a member. And that's all they said, and they kept running away. So they were obviously at my talk, and I just got such a kick out of that stuff. The stuff that happens in the run community it's never, it just goes on and on. It surprises me so much sometimes.
So now you started your own special fan club now.
Yeah.
Young attractive flight attendants are going to be.
Yeah, there you go. It cracks me up still to this day.
Oh, that's funny. So talk about maybe one of your toughest races that you've done.
Whew, yeah, I mean, I did that Himalayan 100 race, which was all that altitude, Badwater, of course. I would have to say Badwater is the hardest. I mean, back when I did Badwater, it was 146 miles. They shortened that course to 135 and don't go up to the top of Whitney, which is 14,496 feet, the highest peak in the contiguous 48. But doing Badwater back when I wasn't an ultra guy then, I didn't do any ultras. I was just a marathoner, and I got roped into it as a work assignment. I said, "Oh yeah, you're doing Badwater," and I thought about it, and I knew I'm not that stupid. I knew I had to do some long runs, but I really didn't, just because of travel and other stuff. But I do remember I lived at the time. My home was about 25 miles from work, so I would ride my bike to work, run home 25 miles, and then the next morning run 25 miles to work. So I was getting two 25-mile runs in about a 12-hour period. So it wasn't like I didn't do anything special, but I never ran past 26.2 miles in my life as a long run. So, or maybe those training runs, which I didn't know could have been like 27 miles. But basically, I consider my longest run being that 26.2, and then to be at that starting line going, wow, this race is 120 miles longer,
Oh, wow.
26.2, like that's a long way. And the crazy, extreme temperatures but you can do so much than you think possible if you're in the right state of mind. And I was in the right state of mind. I remember just telling myself at the start, the reason why you've run all these miles is today. This is why you got this opportunity, go out and run 146 miles, enjoy every step of it. And I honestly did enjoy every step of it. I'm not saying it wasn't arduous, but I enjoyed every second of that race. And I don't think a lot of people, had that mindset. I really got in a good mindset early on and just felt like I was part of Death Valley and just went out there and enjoyed it.
Wow.
Yeah, and I challenge everybody to get a copy of Bart's book, My Life on the Run. He talks about that, and there's pictures and everything in the
Yeah.
book.
No one knew about that Badwater race until I did it. Like a handful of people knew about it.
Yeah, it was like the early days of that race.
Yeah. But then we did a big story in Runner's World, and then the race just took off. And now, Scott Jurek, Dean Karnassus, Pam Reed, all these people do it now. It's amazing what that race has become. But there were 6 runners when I did it back in
Wow.
1989. 6, if you can imagine going to the starting line, and there's only 5 other runners in the race.
And you're wondering, are we all going to make it?
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty wild, but it is a lot of fun.
Well, let's finish up by talking about destination marathons. We wanted to ask
Yeah.
you, what are some? So you've been to so many marathons, and I think you have your hand on the pulse of the state of marathons around the world. So, what are some must-do races in the United States?
Yeah, in the U.S., I think one of my most fun weekends is the Pikes Peak Marathon. What I love about Manitou Springs, where the race is held, it's a small town, but it's also big enough that it has the restaurants and all the stuff you need, enough coffee shops and restaurants and places for runners to hang out.
This is in Colorado.
Yep, in Manitou Springs, Colorado, right outside of Colorado Springs. But the race, it's 2 days of racing. On Saturday is what they call the ascent. You run 13.1 miles straight up Pikes Peak. You start at 6,800 feet, finish at 14,100 feet, and then you get a bus ride down. And then on Sunday, you run all the way up, turn around, and run all the way back down. No bus ride. And that's what they call the Pikes Peak Marathon, which is the second oldest marathon in the United States.
Really?
It's been run consecutively since 1955.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And Pikes Peak, it's just a fun weekend. And then there's a lot of people who do the double. They do the Saturday race and the Sunday race, which pretty tough. But I remember the first time I did the Pikes Peak Marathon, I fell pretty hard coming down the mountain. I was younger then. I remember, got to the top, right at 3 hours. And I felt really good and started running down the mountain. And, I think I was in like 14th place or something like that. I was pretty happy because I knew everyone in front of me was from Colorado.
Right.
And, I was the first non-altitude guy living in Pennsylvania. So I was excited. And I started powering down that mountain, running fast. And, man, I face planted so bad. And I really messed up my hip and my shoulder. But got back up running again and fell again and then I just could not get my stride back. My hip was so whacked from my fall. But I got to that finish line and I felt like I was bleeding everywhere. I felt like such an idiot, like I was bloody and everything. And I go in the medical tent, and a lot of the runners who finished ahead of me, they were in there and they were all bloody. And I was like, oh, I love this race. I don't feel bad anymore because there are other bloody people in there. And I remember the volunteer in the medical tent, she looked at me and she said, oh, I got to get all these stones out of your wounds in your shoulder and hip and knee and elbow, all on my right side. And they had these like a giant toothbrush. And they
Ouch.
take the mercure comb, go in there and brush the stones out.
Wow.
She looked at me and she said, this is going to hurt. I said, no, it's not. I said, you could use a wire brush. I wouldn't feel a thing. I am the happiest person in the world. That was the most fun ever. Like, take a wire brush to me and I'll smile. She was scrubbing away and she said, I remember she looked at me and said, she said, you're right. You're not moving around. Everyone else, like, starts, scooching around. I was sitting there. I was so happy. And that's what I love. I mean, you blood, sweat, and tears. That's Pikes Peak. I just think it's just the most fun weekend in running. This race I'm going to this weekend, Kauai Marathon. I love going to Hawaii. There's so many good races there, and it's such a special place to go. But it's hard to put. I always say to people, you got to think of the type of race you want. Is it a big city marathon? Chicago logistically is so easy. Start and finish very close together. Everything's close to the downtown hotels. You get the 40,000 or 45,000 people. It's unbelievable. New York, it's as close to an Olympic event as a non-Olympic runner could ever experience. There were runners from 130 countries on average.
Wow.
The Olympics have 110 countries represented. So it is more international than the Olympics. And when you go out to that start, nobody speaks English. You hear all these languages and you're just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And running, of course, as you guys know, is a global sport. So it's fun to experience all that stuff. But then I love just going to some of these smaller races, in Ogden, Utah, or, I could go on and on. You just get these small type events where you just fall in love with the community. Route 66 in Tulsa is one. Everyone in the town embraces the race, and you just feel so lucky. And there's some of these still have 10,000, 12,000 people, but it's certainly more manageable than 40,000. And I feel I get to connect with more people, and that's why I go to events. I don't go to events to appease myself. I go there to connect with people and find out their stories. There's so many people I meet at events that end up in the pages of Runner's World or on runnersworld.com. I find out their story. Some people find out their story. They don't think they have a story. And I'm like, you have an amazing story. What, you've never told anybody this? And they go, I didn't think it was that big a deal. I said, well, I think it's a big deal. So, I come back and submit their story, come up with the ideas, feature, whether it's a feature story or sometimes just ends up on our website. But it's fun to actually be that person that starts that in motion. It's really, and I personally get motivated by these people's stories. I mean, it's amazing to me what people have overcome. So they get me excited to keep running.
Definitely. And we've heard over and over from people in our community that have met you at some point that it was just one of the highlights of their running career, and they just speak so highly of you and how you've inspired them, and and you're saying how people inspire you. So
that's nice to hear. I get those emails from people that they say they're inspired by me, and I don't know what I do to inspire them. I'm, in the big picture, I'm a pretty shy person. People probably don't think that because I speak to large groups and at events, and I do a lot of public speaking. But I really am. I mean, when I go home, I'm just happy to kick back in my house, read a book, cut the grass, keep to myself. But so when people tell me I inspire them, I'm always afraid or ashamed to ask them, what did I do to inspire you? But if I inspired them, whatever I did, I'm happy I inspired them, and I'm just happy they're out there running. But I get inspiration, going to these running communities. I remember last year being at the Richmond Marathon, and this woman finished a race, and I was told by someone that she was battling cancer. And when she came in, I made a big deal about her finishing, which was really cool. And then she got her medal and her blanket and everything. And then she was telling the race director, she goes, I got to have my picture with Bart Yasso. You got to get him over here. So the director comes and grabs me, and I go meet this woman. Her name was Yvonne. And I got a picture with her, and I met her husband. I met her 2 kids. And I have this beautiful picture that I looked at the next day, and she was smiling and just gorgeous, gorgeous woman. She had such a spirit, such a smile. And I knew she was battling cancer, so I talked to her about her cancer and stuff. And she never let on how sick she was, because she passed away 9 days later.
Oh, wow.
And when I look at that picture, which I look at very often, I still look at it, I always think, God, I hope 9 days from my death, I can cross a finish line and be happy and smile at everyone, instead of like, she never felt she got a raw deal in life and never felt sorry for herself. She just felt, she knew she was close to the end of her life, but she lived it to the fullest, to the last day. She actually did the Philly half, so she did the Richmond half marathon, and the next weekend did the Philly half marathon.
Wow.
Away a few days later. But I always tell runners when they come up to me crying because they missed their personal record by 2 seconds, I'm like, chill out a little bit. There's other races to do, and we can't lose focus how lucky we are to do what we do physically and culturally. Like I still travel to places where people are suppressed from sport. Women are suppressed from sport. People who follow certain religions are suppressed from sport. So we're pretty lucky. We have a lot of opportunity. You just got to make the best of the opportunity you're given.
Yeah, so true. I guess to wrap things up, we wanted to know too, what are some of the must-do races outside of the United States?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of listeners outside of the U.S. too.
Yeah, so if you're doing 7 continents, obviously Antarctica is a must. But I always, of those big European races, Rome is still my favorite. I just love the romance of the city of Rome and the race itself, to start at the Colosseum and finish doing the Appian Way the last 3 miles under the arches. Oh my God, it takes in everything. The Vatican, the Tiber River, Spanish Steps, Trevi Fountain. I mean, you get to see it all. And you just fall in love with the city of Rome. And I'm very familiar with the city of Rome, so when I did the race, I thought, they can't show us something I've never seen. Well, they did. We went through so many little piazzas and stuff. It's just the best. But Paris, Berlin is really fast and so well organized. There's just so many to choose from. I've never done Tokyo, which has now turned into a really big race. But there's some amazing races in Europe and Asia. Istanbul Marathon you can do, which actually the city of Istanbul is in 2 continents. It's in Asia and Europe.
Wow.
So you can do a marathon on 2 continents in the same race.
Nice.
So yeah, there's stuff like that. Is just you just got to get as adventurous as you want. And I always tell people that ask me those questions, which European marathon or Asian marathon, I said, pick one, the city you want to go to, the place you always wanted to go to. There's a marathon either in that city or close by, and then run the race and then be a tourist. And that's the best thing, whether that's Barcelona or Rome or, we all had that romantic city that's in our mind that we always wanted to go to. And that's, as I tell people, I've used running as a vehicle to take me around the world, to meet people, experience cultures. And I'm an animal lover, so I always take in whatever critters they have in that specific area, whether it's the lemurs of Madagascar or, the great lions of the Serengeti, whatever it is. I'm an animal guy, so I besides the cultures and the people, I always take in the animals.
You bring it back home with you?
No, that I don't do. But I come back with a lot of good memories and a couple good photos. But I just love, and that's probably why Africa is my favorite place, just because of the sheer amount of animals. And I get to see elephants out on a run. There's stuff there that you can't experience anywhere else. And the Comrades Marathon in South Africa by far is my greatest running experience. To do Comrades was always a dream. I actually used to be decent in 50-mile races. My 50-mile PR is 6 hours and 1 minute. So I used to be able to run like 7:20 per mile for 50 miles. I can't do that anymore. But so I always wanted to do Comrades when I was that fast, but I never did it because of two reasons. One, apartheid. But then apartheid was abolished, and then I entered Comrades twice, and I got sick both times. My Lyme disease flare-ups happened, and I never made it to the race. So I went there and did Comrades in 2010, thinking it was my last chance to physically do it because I was suffering a lot of problems from Lyme disease. But I got over there and got to that finish line, and it was magical. You know, to see a race that's oldest ultra in the world, been around since 1921. Largest ultra in the world, 20,000 people line up to run 56 brutal miles. But most importantly, to have the opportunity to see the physical change of South Africa after the abolishment of apartheid, which had a global effect, but it certainly saved this country. And when Mandela was, president, it was cool just to be in South Africa. Let alone, I never got to meet Mandela. That was one of my goals, but I never got to meet him. But got to experience his vision on what a great leader he was to change a country, which eventually changed the world, the mindset that they had. And Comrades, you feel all those changes while you're running the race, surrounded by black citizens out there running. And in the old days, they didn't allow the blacks to run Comrades. They were not allowed to enter, if you can imagine that. It's not that way now. Now there's a lot of black citizens at the front of the race, and when I went over there, it was funny. One of my editors asked me, "Do you think people will know who you are in South Africa?" And I said, "I don't know. We'll find out when I get there." And I got off the plane in Johannesburg, and there must have been a group of like 50 runners that came out to greet me at the airport. Nothing to do with the race. I mean, just on their own.
Oh, cool.
They had these signs, "Welcome Bart Yasso." I was like,
I guess so.
I got to get an email off to my editor. They do know who I am in South Africa. So it was so cool to get hugs and stuff in the airport. I mean, I just didn't even like officially step into South Africa. I was still in the terminal, and I get that kind of greeting. It was pretty cool. I knew the weekend then would be very, very special.
Well said.
That's amazing.
So thank you so much for talking with us, Bart. And where can people
thank you.
Where can people find you online and just keep up with what's going on?
Yeah, so I try to keep up with my personal website, bartyasso.com. Of course, runnersworld.com. We always post where we're going and where I'm going, and I'm pretty active on Facebook and Twitter. You just Google Bart Yasso, all that stuff comes up. I do my best on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, to keep people informed where I'm at, and I do that so I can meet people.
Yeah.
And hear their stories and find out their journeys. And, again, some of those stories, they don't think they have a story. But then they end up in the pages of Runner's World, and now they have a story.
That's right.
I don't know what it is that they don't, typical example is the big piece we did, feature story, running with the Amish, that I worked on. And the Amish, they said to me, like, why would anyone care that 5 Amish people are running? I said, trust me. People, I said, I have a personal fascination about it, and people are inquisitive. Like, they don't know the Amish run. This is going to be a big hit. And the Amish thought I was crazy. Well, now they're like celebrities wherever they go. What's wrong with the Amish? And now they get it. But it's really fun to use that as an example. That was probably my favorite feature piece that I worked on, running with the Amish, because it had such a personal connection with people. And that Amish community, when I used to go out there 5 years ago, and there were a handful of Amish runners, when I go out there now, there's like 400 to 500 Amish runners. And the kids come up to me, they know me. They say, "Mr. Yasso's here." I'm like, it's unbelievable. So it's to physically see these changes come to life. That's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again, Bart, for talking to us, and it's been fun. And thanks for being an inspiration to so many out there. I know people are going to love this episode.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and keep up the great work. This is what our sport's all about. I mean, you guys touch so many people, and you're willing to share all this information. I think it's the coolest. So thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. And
Bart.
Hopefully we'll bump into you at another race here soon.
That would be a great thing.
All right.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All
Okay,
right. God
bye-bye.
bless.